One day while visiting Japan, I woke up and realized that I was the only person out of our group to have a Japan Rails pass that was still active. It was the last day I could use it to travel outside of Tokyo, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go. Shimo-Suwa is a town east of Okaya and north of Lake Suwa, located in the Nagano Prefecture in central Japan. It's a scenic area surrounded by a vast mountain range and with a collection of landmarks and cool scenery. The reason I was interested in visiting this part of Japan was because the area apparently has ties to a popular Japanese indie video game series known as the Touhou Project. If you have no idea what this Touhou Project thing is, that's totally fine. I still absolutely recommend visiting the area, and as you'll hear, there are plenty of places to visit and things to see. But this idea of going on some sort of pilgrimage was something I've never considered doing before, and it was literally the last day during my trip that I could do it, so I went for it. From Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, I hopped on the Super Azusa Limited Express bound for Matsumoto on the Chuo line to Kami-Suwa Station, and from there, I transferred to a local train on the Chuo line, which heads over to Shimo-Suwa Station. It's important to take the Super Azusa Limited Express line because it skips many of the stations on the line. Taking the Limited Express will take somewhere between 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on how many stops your particular train makes. It can vary between around 8 to 11 stops. If you take a regular train on the Chuo line, your journey will take somewhere between 3.5 to 4 hours, with more than 40 stops along the way. If you decide that you're interested in traveling to this area of Japan, do yourself a favor and take the Limited Express train. If you have a JR Pass, the train has reserved and unreserved seating. So in my case, all I had to do was find the right train and hop on board with my JR Pass. If not, you'll need to get a ticket ahead of time, and it's not the cheapest ticket either, at around 6,150 yen, or approximately $54 US, and that's for a one-way only ticket. At least it's not as expensive as a ticket to ride the Shinkansen. Once you get out into the countryside, the scenery is pretty awesome. I didn't mind that it was a 2-hour trip to get to where I wanted to go to, because the scenery more than made up for it. Solar panels, farming, and mountains become part of the regular scenery during the journey into central Japan. If you're into taking video of some of the cool scenery, you'll almost need to take way more video than you think you need to, because as soon as you see something cool, it's gone in 15 seconds or less. Hit the record button or be really ready to hit it for those moments when you encounter the occasional river valley, hills, buildings, and other features. The train platforms can be more complex or very simple depending on the towns and cities that you pass through. Since I was on the Limited Express train, we passed by lots of station platforms with people waiting for their train. My train was not the one they were waiting for. After arriving at Kami-Suwa Station, it was just a matter of waiting at the same station for the appropriate train to arrive, and that would take me to Shimo-Suwa. There's no need to go through the ticketing gate, you'll just end up confusing the station tenant like I did. At Shimo-Suwa Station, there is a large map with locations and numbers which outlines a route that one could take in order to visit the area in a more methodical manner. Since I only had a couple hours of daylight, I wanted to hit the main areas, so I completely ignored the path and went straight towards one of the more prominent landmarks in the area, Akimiya Shrine. It's not a bad day today. Probably the most blue sky I've seen in a while. If you stay in Tokyo, you're not going to see like any blue sky. And it is uphill to the shrine that all the signs are pointing me to, so I imagine it's probably one of the more prominent ones. So let's go find out. Akimiya Shrine is up a large hill, and it's a decent walk away from the station. When you get to the shrine, as with many shrines in Japan, a large torii can be seen at the foot of a staircase, with the temizuya, or chozuya, located on the left. One of the shrines in the Touhou Project series is said to have been modeled after the shrines in the area, with the Akimiya Shrine being one of them. The shrine has a very thick straw rope at the front, which many shrines have, but at this shrine it felt more like a prominent feature. Farther back and to the right, one can find a collection of ema, wooden boards which have messages and occasionally illustrations written and drawn on them. One of the things that makes this shrine special is the fact that you can find messages and drawings either referencing or directly related to characters and other elements of the Touhou Project series. Ema are typically used for writing down one's wishes, and they can be for oneself or something much broader. Shimo-Suwa shares its name with the nearby Lake Suwa, which fans of the series may have surmised is related to the character Suwako Moria. Additionally, one of the mountains in the range surrounding the area is named Mount Moria. In the game series, the land that the characters live in and where most of the game's events take place is called Gensokyo. And according to local legend, if Gensokyo were a place that existed in real life, this town would be right in the middle of it. One of the other shrines in the area is the Harumiya Shrine. It's almost 2 kilometers away from Akimiya, and the path to get there is not the most straightforward coming from this side of town. I ended up walking along a road which eventually started to go uphill next to what looked like a cemetery, and it was also around this time that I began to hear some interesting music. It's common for music to play to indicate things like curfew for school children, but this seemed a little different. My position from higher up on this road also gave me a great view of the sun setting over the mountain range. It's a rare sight for me, having lived most of my life in the northern Great Plains in the United States, where mountains basically don't exist. Here, I was surrounded by them. The locals in the area were also some of the nicest folks I'd interacted with, although it wasn't anything more than saying good afternoon in Japanese. Just as I followed the signs from the station to Akimiya, I continued following the signs to Harumiya. It's easy to get a little lost. Right now I'm looking for Harumiya, and it apparently is back down these steps. I already walked up them to figure out what was up here. Not what I'm looking for. Although, I mean, honestly, you take a look at some of the gateways we're under, and some of the stuff that you see. There's shrines everywhere, but it's just not the one I'm looking for. Right? There's a whole bunch of art. There's a couple shrines right here, actually. So yeah, they're smaller. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just that I'm only here for a finite amount of time, and I'm looking for one in particular at this point. I mean, really, this looks pretty, right? We could apparently drink from this. I don't know if I would, just me. Adventure! Something smells good, though, I'll tell you that. Anyway, down this road, take a right. I'm gonna get closer to the river that's over there. I've been climbing what feels like a mountain, not going into what should seem like a valley. But apparently it's closer to the valley than it is to any of the mountains in the area. There's mountains there, mountains there, mountains there. I'm not sure if it's out that way, but Yeah, there's mountains everywhere around here, so. Finding the Harumiya shrine was difficult, but what I realized was that it should have been fairly obvious. There's a unique bridge which runs along the pathway, or in this case, there's a road that leads right up to Harumiya. Farther down the road away from Harumiya is a second tori, and it's very common to find multiple tori on the pathways leading up to many shrines in Japan. Once I made my way back, I was greeted by a freight train which had stopped for a while, and eventually departed again with an abrupt clang. It was much louder in person, and my video doesn't capture the very beginning of the train's movement, which was the loudest moment. My ride back on the Super Azusa Limited Express was different on the way back, since the sun had, of course, already set. The scenery at night is completely different because it's more about the illuminated lights and signs rather than the mountains, buildings, and landscape. This was the only trip I did on my own in Japan, being that I was the only person in my group with an active JR pass, and it was the last day it was valid for me. This was the first time I'd ever done anything like a pilgrimage to a place for reasons which were related to, of all things, a video game series. Like most people in the West, I first encountered the Touhou Project online, and then occasionally at certain events or conventions, and after arriving in Japan, it became notably more prominent even while just shopping in public. If you're a fan of the game series or have no idea what I'm talking about, either way, I highly recommend making the journey to this quieter, more scenic part of Japan, where you'd probably be lucky to find any foreigners or tourists. It's obvious that there are multiple points of interest in the area when you're initially greeted by the board at Shimo-Suwa Station. So, if you're in the area, or you have an extra day to spend during a trip to Japan, take a look. I'm sure there are many areas in Japan similar to the Shimo-Suwa area, but for me, this resonated in a special way. And if you make the trip, I hope you end up finding yourself someplace special too.